Emma Carter had always been fascinated by old things, forgotten letters, dusty books, and antique furniture. As a history professor at a small university in New York, she spent most of her days buried in archives, uncovering stories of people long gone. But nothing had prepared her for what she found in an old bookstore on a rainy afternoon. The book was bound in deep brown leather, its edges worn with time. Inside, she discovered something strange. A folded letter, yellowed with age, tucked between the pages. Curiosity took over as she carefully opened it. To the one who finds this letter, I don't know who you are, but if you're reading this, then fate has connected us. My name is James Montgomery, and in my time, 1992, I have fallen in love with a woman I have never met. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Was this a joke? A literary experiment? She read on. She appears in my dreams, in visions I cannot explain. I see her in a future that does not exist yet, in a world beyond my understanding. Her eyes are like the stormy sea, and her voice is a melody I long to hear in reality. If she is real, if you are reading this, then perhaps time is not as rigid as we believe. Emma closed the letter, her hands trembling. Who was this man? And why did his words feel so familiar? Determined to uncover the truth, Emma researched James Montgomery. To her surprise, he had been a real person, a young poet from the late 1800s who mysteriously disappeared at the age of 29. No body was ever found, and his last known letter, dated 1892, was never delivered. Something inside her whispered that she was connected to him in ways she couldn't explain. She visited the Montgomery estate, now a historical site, and wandered through the halls of what was once his home. And then, in the dim light of the study, she saw it. An antique mirror, standing tall, its surface shimmering unnaturally. As she stepped closer, a sudden gust of wind swept through the room. The mirror rippled like water, and before she could react, she was pulled inside. Emma gasped as she found herself standing in a candle-lit study. The air smelled of ink and aged parchment. Her modern clothes felt out of place, but before she could process what had happened, a voice spoke from behind her. You're real," the voice whispered in astonishment. She turned, and there he was. James Montgomery. His dark, wavy hair framed a face full of disbelief and wonder. His piercing blue eyes studied her, as if memorizing every detail. "I've seen you before," he said. "In my dreams, in my writing. I never thought—" He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Are you from the future?" Emma nodded slowly, her heart racing. "I found your letter." For a long moment they just stared at each other, as if afraid that speaking would shatter the fragile reality between them. Then, without thinking, James reached out and gently touched her hand. And that was when she knew this was not just a coincidence. They had been connected across time, across centuries, drawn to each other by a force greater than fate itself. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself falling in love with James. They spent hours talking, sharing their worlds, and cherishing the stolen moments between past and future. He took her to hidden gardens, read poetry to her by candlelight, and showed her a love she had never known. But the truth lingered between them. She couldn't stay forever. "I don't belong here," Emma admitted one evening as they sat beneath the stars. "And history says you disappeared." James took her hands in his. "Maybe I disappeared because I was meant to find you." Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't want to leave him, but time was an unforgiving force. The mirror had appeared once, and it could reappear again, but for how long? And then, as if summoned by her thoughts, the mirror returned. It shimmered in the distance, offering her a choice. If she stayed, she would be rewriting history. If she left, she would lose the only love that had ever felt real. James cupped her face in his hands. "Whatever you choose, know that I have loved you in every lifetime, in every dream. If time separates us, I will find you again. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Emma kissed him. One last, desperate kiss that held all the love, pain, and longing of a love that defied time. Then, with a shattered heart, she stepped into the mirror. The world blurred, and when she opened her eyes, she was back in the present. The Montgomery estate was just as it had been, empty, silent. The mirror stood still, lifeless. James was gone. Had it all been real, or just a beautiful illusion? But then she felt something in her pocket. Trembling, she pulled it out, a piece of parchment, a letter. Emma, I will wait for you, in this life or the next. And she knew. Their love story wasn't over. Would you like a sequel?